Episode 142, The Refining Power of Change with Jackie Swainson.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
Our brains are hardwired to resist change, and yet change is what is needed for us to be refined and to make us into who God knows we can be. On today's podcast, Coach Jackie Swainson talks about why we need change, why it's an important part of our development, and how change can truly take place through small and simple steps. If after listening to this episode, you want more help making the changes you want to see in your life, please reach out and contact Jackie. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody. It is September and we're getting close to a change in seasons. And as I'm talking about a change in seasons, we're actually going to talk about change in general today. And I am excited for you guys to hear this conversation between myself and Coach Jackie Swainson. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, Heather, it's good to be here again. I enjoy our conversations, and it is a good time actually to start with change because we've been through summer, all these things have been going on, and change is kind of like, the bad word that we don't like to use because we think it means so much more than it does. And so hopefully after our chat, we can just people will understand that we can change if we do it the right way. Yeah.
So true. Whether you live in a place where you feel all four seasons or you just kind of are warm all the time. I live in Idaho and Jackie is in Canada. So I'm assuming that you experience the seasons.
Oh, yeah.
You experience all four seasons.
I'm a seasons person. I love the seasons.
Me too. Yeah. And I was outside this morning and it's still very much summer here, but like the mornings feel a little bit different. And you could just I had that little bit of excitement inside of me today. And I thought, oh, if only I felt this excitement when I knew that other things were going to change.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's, when we think about change, so I'm going to start by thinking about it in the spiritual gospel sense, because this gospel, the gospel of Jesus Christ, is a gospel of change. We're always changing. Every time we feel the Spirit, it changes us. Our heart changes. Something inside us changes in response to that. When we can have our Saul to Paul moments when it's this huge change in the way we're thinking, and it's like driven by the Spirit forcefully upon us because we have needed that. We seem to be okay with big changes, but the small changes that we have every day are just normal. And, we partake of the sacrament every week and we try to think about the things that we could do better or what we could be forgiven for. And those are change. That is change. So any of those things that we think are other things really are us engaging in some kind of change. And yet when we talk about personal change, like I might say, I do not want to be such a critical person. I want to walk my 10,000 steps every day, and I'm not doing it. Those things we hold back from, and we tend not to change as easily. Our life is changing. You mentioned that we change our seasons, we change our surroundings, we change our friends. We were created to change. We are born, we live, we grow, we learn, and we return to our Father in heaven, completely changed from our experience here on life. So whether we think about it or not, we are changing always. And when it gets scary, I think, is when we have things about ourselves that we do not like, that we think we should change and want to change, we procrastinate a lot. It's easy to say, I know my husband should do this. If he changed this, if she changed that, if you change this, everything would be fine. It's easy to sort of say what other people need. But we need to be honest with ourselves and embrace change, because that's the only way we progress.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that procrastination in change often arises because we don't know how? We don't know where to even begin.
We don't know how, and we're afraid. We're afraid that something different that we don't know or that we're not expecting might result.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's a psychological glitch that we have. It's like we need to change, we want to change, but our brain is telling us, oh, I can't do that, or it's not a good idea, or it's too hard. So we sort of have a negative bias with ourselves. We think of all the negative things, but we don't live in the gratitude bias area where we're thinking, I can, I could, what if, maybe. That's the inner dialogue and the self-talk that we have. Oh, it's just too hard. I'll start tomorrow, or I can't do this. Yeah. And if you've never walked 10,000 steps in a day, you probably are going to have a really hard time doing it at first. But if you want to change that habit towards, like, I'm just picking this physical activity, put your runners beside your bed, or put them in a convenient place so that at least you put them on and walk out the door. That's a success. That's not a failure. That's a success because you started to do it. And you should say, hey, I did that. I didn't do it yesterday, but look at me go. I walked to the end of the driveway and back. We need to start small with manageable, obvious, convenient changes. If we don't, for me, I love chocolate. I really do. And I could plan my whole week about being deprived of other things just so I can have chocolate, which is the wrong attitude, by the way. I'll really admit it. But if I don't buy it, I won't have it. And if I'm not going to have it and I feel like I need something, I have another alternative that's better, that's convenient and ready for me to have. So small changes and small increments every day over time lead to a big change. We can accomplish great things if we just know how to change and how to manage change. Somebody dies, something happens to our family. There's a lot of things that can happen that can change everything very quickly. And if we seek the Lord's help and other people's help, everybody really steps in, and the Lord steps in to really help us, because it's so traumatic and so complete. The process afterwards is hard, but we have to do it because it's happened. So that's not the kind of change I'm talking about. I'm talking about improving our lives on a daily basis the way we want them to be, and change the things that we want to change. I don't want to be gossipy and critical about people at church. So, maybe suggest to your spouse, if I start talking about anybody in a negative way, change the subject for me. And if you have to, sign a contract and say, I'm not going to get mad at you. Like, make the parameters and involve other people, and you'll find success.
Those are fun examples. And I think areas where we all have room for that, right? There's places where we all want change and we're working towards it. So I know that you, particularly as a coach, work with women who are over the age of 50, or I've heard you say before, of a certain age.
Absolutely.
Is that right? Yeah. And I'm wondering what challenges you find that they are facing, that they need to change their beliefs about. What is it that you see them facing?
Well, you said the key word, so it's beliefs. So over time, we develop beliefs about ourselves, and a lot of them come from what other people share with us or how we feel around other people. And they're not necessarily true, but we adopt them. Oh, I'm always this, or this is the kind of person that I am. And our belief is the acceptance of a statement that we think is true. So we say, okay, this is a true statement. I am not a very good listener. So then you've set up, anytime you try to listen, you've set up this stage where I'm not a good listener. And that's just who I am. And so you don't listen well. And the older we get, the beliefs about ourselves drive our habits. So if we believe something about ourselves, we act out, and our actions and our words and the things we do follow that habit. Say biting your fingernails, we just put our hands in our mouth, but so we're biting our fingernails. And it's sort of that belief about ourselves is like, I can't grow fingernails, or I get nervous, so I have to chew. They're the self-talk that we give. So we've got this cycle of beliefs. We've got this cycle of I can't, I shouldn't, I wouldn't. I'm not able to. And we don't dwell in the possibility of, why not? Why couldn't I? Why shouldn't I? And I can. And the older we get, honestly, the more set in our ways we get. And the more set we get in those habits and those beliefs, the harder it is to change the things that we do. And there are, our beliefs are either limiting, which means I can't do something, I won't do something. So we don't explore that area, or they're uplifting. I can do anything if I try, or I'm not a good speaker, but I'm going to speak in church today and I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to say no when I get asked. That kind of a thing. I get really nervous. Tell yourself that's okay. I'm still going to do it, right? We don't give ourselves these outs. We follow through with the things that we decide to do in small and large ways. And if you ever watch a toddler learning to walk, up and down, up and down, up and down, falling all the time, but they're laughing and giggling and they keep trying because they believe they can do it. No one's told them they can't do it. No one's told them it's the wrong thing to do. And it's uncomfortable because they fall a lot and they cry and they get frustrated, but they keep going because everybody's saying, you can do it. You can do it. So we need to, as women in this age bracket and as young mothers and as anybody, tell each other, we can do these things. We can do easy things. We can do hard things. And develop a circle of friends that you can talk to help you with, yes, I can. We always have, I can't, I shouldn't. No, it's not me. I would never. Those are the phrases that we use. And I know a young woman whose mother said, you can't sing. You can't sing on key. It's just awful. She sings beautifully, but her mother has told her she can't sing. So she won't sing in a choir. She won't sing. She'll sing with her headphones on. She sounds amazing. But that's her belief because someone has planted and given her that belief. So we have to train our brains to think about ourselves differently. And as we get older, we're more reluctant to, because we think sometimes things have worked well for us and are serving us well. And if we really talk about them, they're not.
Mm-hmm. I'm listening to you talk about those things, and we are hard on ourselves many times, right? A lot of our motivation for change is because we think there's something wrong with us, how we are. And I'm curious how you address that, because it is really hard to change from a place of dislike or unkindness to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious how you bridge that gap with your clients, helping them to accept who they are now, and that mm-hmm. there's nothing wrong with who they are, and wanting something different at the same time. Do you know what I'm asking there?
Yeah. So one thing that I do is I've got this sign in my office, but it's on the other wall, and it says, change is not easy, but it's so worth it. You will get there. But right now you are here, and here is wonderful. Mm-hmm. So we start from that premise. Right now, here we are. You're not there. You're not there. You're here. So let's see who we are, where we are. And so just a really easy first exercise is, I send them a form before they come the first time, and I'll say, tell me what you want me to know about yourself. And it's interesting what they put down. There's a lot of negative things that they put down. This is this, and I'm not this, and I'm not this. And I say, and what is something that you are really proud of that you do? And a lot of times I can't think of anything right now. So that's how we start. And so, something like there's all kinds of tools as coaches that we use. We can reframe the questions. We can do this or that. But the first thing I'll do is say, okay, so I've read this all and I've noticed A, B, C, D. And so you've got a pattern here of negative self-talk. These things, I don't know if they're true about you or not, but let's investigate. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I give them a piece of paper, and I want you to write down from your brain, just write like it's just coming without thought, all the things that you don't like about yourself, or that wish you could do better, or that aren't you, that you'd like to change. So that category, I sit, I've got music playing, it's quiet, they sit there, and I've had people say, I don't know what to write. I said, just start dumping all those thoughts out. And then before we look at it, I give them a second sheet of paper, so now take 2 minutes and write down the things that you would like to be, that you would like to change, or that you're really good at right now, that you like about yourself. Now, which one's harder? Obviously, it's the
yes.
second one,
Is it
right?
so sad? It's so sad, isn't it? That is so
is.
hard. Yeah.
It is. It's the second one. And so we
Mhm.
talk about the differences, and they're like, oh my gosh, look at the difference. I say, okay, pick one thing from each list that you most like. So the things that you that you don't like about yourself, what is the one thing that you would like to change most of all? And so they'll, it might take them a few minutes, but they'll come up with something. And if one gal I just finished a series with is she wanted to be healthier and make healthier life choices, because her husband was still working, her kids were gone, she was alone. She had a group of friends, but she didn't feel she could walk with them because they were all super fit grandmas. So she said, I want to be able to go and hang out with my friends and do what they do. And so that was the first goal. And so I said, okay, you have a desire. That's a good thing. You have a tool. You have the desire to do it. How can you accomplish that? Well, I don't know. I'm not in good shape. I don't have the right shoes. I don't have the right clothes. I said, okay, get yourself a good pair of walking shoes, walk around the house for them for a week and wear them in. Like get used to wearing them. Start changing into clothes in the house that you would walk outside in or go for a walk with your friends. And then the third week, the challenge was phone your friends and tell them, I'm not a good walker, but I want to be. Can I come with you? And of course they said, absolutely. They just never invited her because she always said no. So she started walking, and it was walk as far as you can. And then, tell your friends that you need to walk back. Well, her friends were amazing, and they walked back. Like, they didn't do their note. They did this back and forth till she was going further and further and further. Over time, she became an avid walker with her walking friends. So it took that brain dump, the looking, the deciding what one thing was really important at that moment that she could change, start a small process, go through the motions, talk to someone, get a buddy. And her buddies were great friends, and they knew her need. So they responded and they changed themselves and what they were doing to help her. So you've got a whole group of changing people for service, giving love, encouragement, having fun, building bonds of friendship. And now she walks, probably 4 or 5 miles a day. They walk. They just go out and walk and laugh and have a great time. So that's how you start a small change. If you go to do a wholesale change about something about yourself, it can't be accomplished. It never works. It's a failure. Now, failure isn't necessarily bad. Failure is like a first part of success. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Now what? So it's having small successes in simple things that allow us to change in other things, which allow us to go deeper and deeper and deeper down into the things that really matter. Like our connection with the Lord, our spirituality, our love of the Savior, our desire to serve. Those things elevate us as well. So it's all connected. Mm-hmm. And, we can ask for the Lord's help. We know we'll get the Lord's help, but we also have to put in some effort. So that's a really simple process. There's a lot more to it, but that's sort of what starts it.
Yeah. And would you say, because I know, like, I'm sure you said, like, you have people make a list and, of the things that maybe they want to change. And I think for many people that could feel very overwhelming. But I heard you say that you give people direction, like choose the one thing. And is that how you help them simplify, or or does that seem to be
a
the
starting point? Because you have to have a starting point. You have so much. Like when I first started this years ago, I had like 2 pages of stuff. And some of it was really trivial, to be honest. I can look back now, but some of it was really got into the really deep spiritual connections that I wanted to make, or some of the past mistakes that I still think about. Why do I think about them? But you start with something really simple, and it may seem superficial, but it's something that they've chosen. So first, they've made a choice, they've made a decision. Second, they make a commitment to themselves and to me. And third, they start. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they start and stop, but then they start again. So once you've learned how to key in on something, you can start the change process. It can be rapid or slow. Usually it's very slow and then it goes quickly. But you can even change, if you have something in your past that is you haven't fully repented of or dealt with, and your heart and your mind still focus on it and it hurts, you can get to that depth of character in that point because you trust yourself to make yourself go through the process.
I find it so fascinating that, I know that like we can look at this big long list and like you say, just start someplace. And it's fascinating to me because once you start with one thing, oftentimes like one thing actually takes care of a couple of other things on that list as well.
It does.
And even if it doesn't take care of all the things, even those other things actually become easier because, like you've said, you've showed yourself that you're capable of it. And so really it is just starting. It's just starting with love and acceptance of yourself and launching into it.
Yeah, like for me as a convert, I sort of had to bring all my own stuff and make all my own rules because I didn't live in a household that had sort of the morning prayer and evening prayer, and so it was difficult to me to do some of those things. And so I thought, I want to read my scriptures in the morning and have my prayer, and then I'd like to read them at night. And Stephen and I would do that. So I would put my scriptures downstairs beside where I would get my breakfast ready. So when I went downstairs, there's my scriptures. And it's like, okay, they're here. What do I do with them now? Do I open them? Do I have breakfast first? So I would open them. And so I developed a habit. It was obvious where they were there. It's so obvious what I wanted to do. Or at night, writing in your journal, if you like to write at night or whatever time of day, put your journal on your bed with a pen. Just sitting nice there neatly. And it's like, it guilts you into it almost, but it's like, okay, I made that commitment. I can just write, I did XYZ and it was a good day. We don't have to write epistles. So it's developing new habits and getting involved in new habits that then take us into more habits that are good and that work well for us. And we can abandon the old habits. If we can change our old habits, guess what happens to our beliefs about ourselves? They drop away and we replace them with new beliefs as I can be physically active. I'm not too old. I can go out with girls and have girls' night. It's okay. My husband's going to be fine. We can have fun, laugh and giggle and act like teenagers. We can go try on makeup at the grocery store. We can get together and have a spiritual testimony meeting ourselves. There's so many things that we can do as women together. It really strengthens us. We spend so much time together with our Relief Society sisters and in the nursery and in the primary and, when we're all raising our kids and in young women's. But once our children are gone, some of our friends leave, we have to be creative because we still need that complete sisterhood that we sometimes feel deprived. It's too far, too old, it's cold out. I don't want to drive that far. If you're going to, it takes effort, but we do have to replace what we've lost because we're in a new phase of life.
Well, and those relationships are key to our humanity, whether we notice it or not. Like that's the whole reason we're here, is to develop those relationships because they're the things that we get to take with us when we leave this earth. I think something that I just want to bring up, because a lot of times, when you talked about reading our scriptures or writing in our journal, like it's really easy to get sucked into kind of this checklist mentality that we tend to have in our religious culture. And it's not just unique to our faith, but I think all religions. It's really easy to like look at that checklist of things that we think we should do and turn that into the things that we think we need to do to, the things that we need to change so that we can do those things. And I think it is important to note that when we work on some things, I think the things that we think that we should do that keep us held down and bogged down, that becomes different too. We learn to see the things that we actually want to do versus the things that we feel like we have to do because it's a checklist. And I just think it's good for us to recognize that a lot of things that we think we have to do, we have to reevaluate, and we don't have to. That's part of those beliefs, right? That we get to change our beliefs about things. So I just wanted to be careful as we talk about things that we want to do, that we also get to evaluate that list and see what things really do need to be there.
Right. It's really helpful to start with a list that is just everything, and then they pick something just to start the pattern of success.
Yeah.
And of doing it. Writing in my journal is not for my posterity. It's not because it's commanded. I like to write about what I'm thinking, and I don't do it every day, but I do that for me. Nobody else has seen any of my journals. I don't show them to anybody. It's just it's for me. So I want to do those things. I miss when I don't read the scriptures. I don't always do it every day, but I know when I need to because of how I feel. And when you're working with positive habits and have made positive choices and changes, you do it because you want to. You remove all the guilt, because I need to do this. And I have, my kids will often say, Mom, I have to. I'm like, you have to? Do you have to? Or do you want to? And there's a real difference, because if we feel driven, we don't get the same reward as if we choose to. And so setting somebody up for success in small and simple things creates the desire for them to do bigger and greater things. And then they're the architect of what they do and how they do it. And there's no right or wrong list. I mean, there's no one thing that they have to do. It's all about what they choose to do and decide to do, and then the follow through.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for talking about that, because I mean, I know the same for me, right? There have been years in my life where I was like, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. And I think a lot of times the things that I like to do now started that way. They started as I have to do. And now it's like my soul needs this. I thrive on this. And so I don't know. I think having an open mind too about some of those things that we think that we have to do. Or
I know what you're trying to say. It's not like this is the checklist of things that we have to do as members of the church. We have counsel of things that will benefit us along the way. And so we choose to do those things. And we know when it's helpful for us. I don't look at anybody else and think, well, she does it that way, so I better do it that way, because I've long passed that point where it's, well, I mean, this person's amazing and I'm very pleased for them. But I'm not in the mode, because I've gone through a long process. I don't compare myself to that standard. I know my standard, and I know my relationship with the Lord, and I know how I receive inspiration. I know how I live my life. And so for me to be around someone who's amazing is amazing. I would hope that if I'm around somebody, they might think there's some of me that's part amazing. And that, like I think you're amazing. So that frees us up to then really enjoy relationships with other people, and enjoy relationships with our friends, with the Lord, with our spouses, with our children, because it's just fun. It's not encumbered about by expectation that we have put. And that's what our beliefs do. They put expectations on us that really aren't necessary.
Yeah. This kind of leads into this thought that beliefs can really either help us and motivate us to move forward, or they really can be a stumbling block for change. And I think that kind of tells us right there the importance of beliefs in that change process. We have to really examine them.
And it's the same when someone's coming from a non-religious background, for instance, and looking at any faith. Their belief system tells that there is no God, there is none of this. And so that's a real stumbling block. And to get through that process and having gone through it, that's a real accomplishment. But it's like you've got these boulders in front of you, because it's just not in your brain to think about. And so anything that we put in front of ourselves as a belief about ourselves, that I'm too old, I can't do it, for instance, or what do I do now? My kids are all gone. I'm retiring from my job. What is my point? What's my purpose? What's my why? If we can take those boulders out of the way, then we can see, we can see more clearly. We can see possibilities that perhaps weren't there before. The Lord is not done with us, because we reach a certain point, or because we've had children, or because we have a job, or because we're single. The Lord is never done with us. There's always more to experience, and more refinement, and more change for us. And it changes our attitude about life and our happiness level or our happiness quotient that we have in our lives. It's a lot of work. Like it's not, I'm talking about like just change one thing. Well, sure, that walking, won't change your life. It'll change certain things in your life. But that's just an example of how you even work with the deeper changes. Like I'm not lovable. My husband doesn't love me. He thinks I'm A, B, C, D. And they want to change that. Well, that's a different process of change for sure. But it still starts out with identifying what's going on and what's one thing you want to work on to start.
Yeah, so beautiful. And I love that idea and that knowledge that our Heavenly Father, our Heavenly Mother, they're not done with us. They have so much that they are trying to prove to us that we are capable of doing, that it's exciting. It's exciting if we think about it that way, that there's just so much that we're capable of, and they know we are, and they're helping us to discover that. And how blessed are we to have that knowledge? I think it's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to live that knowledge, because if we can live it, other people just feel, they'll feel something. They'll feel that you've got it together. And that's not necessarily being together, but that your purpose, there's a plan, where you're going, and you have some ideas of how you need to get there as far as eternal life. And so if we have that vision, we build our lives to sort of go up to that point, and we never stop growing. We never stop, climbing that mountain. We might hit a plateau and just feel really great, but then there's more. And even then we're not done. So it's our lives are like, we were created to change and to become more than we are. While we are here, we can be more than we think we are. The Lord knows how much we are and can be. And, but we don't know that.
So good. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. I think no matter where we are in our life, we are faced with changes that we want to make, or changes that are just happening in our lives in general. And so much that we can learn from this. And it is through small things that great things are brought to pass, right? We all know that scripture. Absolutely. And it is so true. So before we leave, I would love for you to share with people where they can find you.
Okay. So I do have a coach website. It's called JackieSwainsonCoaching.com. And I have a bit about myself and some of the things I do. And there's some buttons to set up like a free consultation call. So I've had quite a few of those, and they're fun. Like I love listening to people, and we have some good conversations. I'm on Instagram at Jackie Lee Swainson, and I'm on the LDS Life Coach directory. All my email addresses and everything are on there. I have a lot of people that I work with that are around me, like in my area, but I've worked with clients online, and it's just as good an experience. So yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
I'm right here.
I think that I did hear you say, when you're working with people, and it sounded like you had worked with some people physically, locally, where you are, and what a treat that is. But I also think it's important for people to know that, because some people prefer that online experience. It feels safer for them. They feel like they can open up a little bit more too. So I think people oftentimes feel apprehensive about working with somebody via Zoom. And that's how much of the coaching industry does take place via Zoom. And people love it. It is awesome. So anyway,
it's easier, and you feel a little less vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I mean, in my community, these are people that I've known, or that know me or know who I am. So it's an easier conversation to have that in person. But Zoom is
and what a treat though. Like I can't, I think that's what a fun treat to be able to work with you in person. So
it is.
Anyway, thank you, Jackie. Thanks for being here. And thank you to all of you who are listening today. And we hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you again next week. Oh, and we will link to all those things that Jackie shared in our show notes. So you could just click on those, and it'll be a quick link to Jackie. So have a great one, everybody.
Thanks, Heather. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, Jackie. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.